Your top stories this evening sponsored by Courts, bringing value home. GEA searched for records of financial crimes. Investigators at Suku tightening their grip. Jack Dio backpedals on his adventurous non-cooperation pledge. GPSU unhappy over Education Minister's sweeper cleaners powwow. Meet with the union and workers, not just the workers, says the GPSU. And Cornelius Thomas sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, begged to serve his sentence in his homeland, Trinidad and Tobago. HGP Nightly News begins now. Good evening to our viewers here in Guyana and online. I'm Travis Chase with the Thursday, October 26 edition of the HGP Nightly News. Here's what you need to know this evening. Despite government's assurance to regularize the employment of super cleaners, the Guyana Public Service Union wants policymakers to ensure that the required benefits are granted to those workers. Jevon Vickery opens our broadcast this evening.
Back in September, Minister of State Joseph Harmon had announced that Cabinet had approved recommendations submitted by the Ministry of Social Protection for the regularization of the employment of sweeper cleaners. Then on Wednesday, members of the Guyana Public Service Union expressed appreciation of the administration's move, but questioned why Minister of Education Nicolette Henry recently met independently with the workers. Vice President of the Guyana Public Service Union Mortimer Liven was critical of the act by the minister and now demands an explanation as to why the union was not invited to the talks between workers and the education minister.
The GPSU is entered into negotiations on behalf of the sweeper cleaners with the Ministry of Education through the Permanent Secretary. And as such, any communication to the sweeper cleaners should be through the GPSU. And to say that she will not meet with a third party flies in the face of and is a blatant disregard of the agreement for the settlement, avoidance and settlement of disputes between the government of Guyana and the Guyana Public Service Union. We have a legally binding agreement which sets out how we should do things.
Mr. Liven further alleged that a meeting with the union was cancelled by the Ministry of Education just shortly before the meeting with the sweeper cleaners. First Vice President of the GPSU, Don Gardner, told the media that based on the feedback from those who attended the meeting, many of the usual benefits may not be granted, specifically as it pertains to annual leave and incentives.
We were informed that after our meeting, this proposal would have been submitted to the Honorable Minister for her recommendation or her approval, and then she would have taken it to Cabinet for Cabinet's approval. Now, while we heard from the media that Cabinet has regularized or approved the regularization of the sweeper cleaners, we are not sure what is the regularization. What does regularization mean? Because we met with sweeper cleaners after, and we met with them after they have met with the minister.
Jevon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Jevon. Opposition leader Barrett Jack Dio has seemingly recognized the implications of his pledge not to cooperate at all levels with the government. Rodin James on the story.
Opposition leader Barrett Jack Dio is not prepared to be the fall guy for the possible consequences of his avowed non-cooperation with the government. 1 week ago, when President Granger appointed retired Judge James Patterson to head GCOM, Mr. Jack Dio had declared that his party will be withdrawing all forms of support from the government. But just 1 week after, the opposition leader is pursuing a more temperate approach.
So let me tell you about the 3 principles that we're going to follow. The first has to do wherever we have to perform statutory functions by virtue of being elected to a post by the people, or functions required by our constitution and the laws, we will discharge those functions. So where in the regions and in the NDCs people are were elected by their communities, they have to continue working, serving their communities.
He had earlier said he will ask his party not to cooperate in that regard. Jack Deo said he realized that if the regional organs do not function, it will certainly affect the lives of people.
We will never contemplate any action that will harm people.
Mr. Jack Deo said too that the PPP will participate in all activities where it can expose the wrongdoings of the coalition.
So we will go to the parliament in the open session. We may not participate in all of the committees, but in the parliament, in the plenary sessions, we'll be there to prevent and to expose the wrongdoings and the corruption. We will, in part of our statutory duties too, our commissioners will be in GCOM.
The opposition leader has pledged to fight the coalition government with renewed vigor. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
You're watching the HGP Nightly News. One of the prisoners who escaped from the Cam Street prison on July 9 was on Thursday sentenced to 5 years imprisonment by a city magistrate for narcotics trafficking. Hear more from Jevon Vickery.
3 months after being recaptured by the police following his escape from the Cam Street prison on July 9, Trinidadian national entertainer Cornelius Thomas will spend some more time behind bars. Cornelius was found guilty by Magistrate Dylon Bess for the offense, which stated that on May 28 at Mandela Avenue, Georgetown, he had in his possession 834 grams of cannabis for the purpose of trafficking. The 31-year-old man was unrepresented. Police prosecutor Christopher Morris told the court that on the day of the incident, police officers received information and with the assistance of the landlord, a search was conducted of the man's premises at Mandela Avenue. Ranks allegedly found the substance in several Ziploc bags. Magistrate Bess, in his ruling, told the court that he was satisfied that Thomas had control of the drug since it was found in his room. Thomas begged the magistrate to serve his sentence at a prison in his homeland, Trinidad. Nevertheless, Magistrate Bess sentenced Thomas to 54 months imprisonment along with a $566,000 fine. Failure to pay the sum will result in additional 6 months in jail. Cornelius Thomas, prior to his escape, was sent to prison on a murder charge. However, on July 9, 2017, he and 4 other hardcore criminals escaped the Cam Street prison after staging an attack on correctional officers and setting the penitentiary alight. Jevon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
The Special Organized Crime Unit is tightening its grip on that investigation at the Guyana Energy Agency. SUCU's head said that staff there are cooperating. Here's more. The office of the Guyana Energy Agency was the subject of a police search Thursday morning, led by head of the Special Organized Crime Unit, Assistant Police Commissioner Sidney James. The search was part of an ongoing investigation into alleged financial crimes.
This search at the Guyana Energy Agency is related to 2 investigations which the Special Organized Crime Unit has been mandated to investigate. One relates to the forensic audit of the Guyana Energy Agency, and the second one relates to an investigation which was done by the Ministry of the Presidency with respect to malpractices, mismanagement in the purchase of fuel by the Guyana Oil Agency and the Guyana Energy Agency.
Head of SUCU, Sidney James. The audit Mr. James referred to was handed over to Cabinet back in January of 2017. It was Minister of Natural Resources, Raphael Trotman, who had made the announcement at the post-Cabinet media briefing.
The Minister of Finance has submitted to Cabinet forensic audit reports for the Guyana Power and Light Incorporated, the Guyana Energy Agency and the Guyana Rice Development Board. Cabinet perused the reports and noted that in all these cases, there were issues that warranted further investigations into financial irregularities. The Honourable Minister of Public Infrastructure was requested to follow up on the relevant issues with the Board of Directors of the Guyana Power and Light, Inc., while the Honourable Minister of Public Security was requested to forward the reports of the Guyana Rice Development Board and the Guyana Energy Agency to the Commissioner of Police for further investigation.
Nightly News observed that agents of SUCU took several cardboard boxes inside the building to retrieve documents for financial analysis. Mr. James was questioned about this. Any documents so were removed by SUCU this morning?
Cheers.
Nightly News was also told that a senior GEA official could not find documents to show that he had paid some $156 million to an international company. That money was in relation to payments which were supposed to be paid to an overseas company for the provision of fuel marking, excise tax recovery, brand protection, supply chain security, product authentication, and banknote authentication solutions to governments. Mr. James was also asked about whether SUCU had initially asked the GEA to produce those documents of alleged financial crimes.
We did ask, but there were some challenges. That's all I care to come.
SUCU's head said that GEA's chief executive Mahinder Sharma and other staff were cooperating with investigators and that SUCU ensured that the search was legally conducted.
We have a search warrant, sir. It was signed by a magistrate.
Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News. Clauses of the draft petroleum legislation are being placed under the public microscope by former House Speaker Ralph Ramkaran, especially the clause that seeks to empower the Minister of Natural Resources to appoint members of the Petroleum Commission. Rawdon James reports.
The draft petroleum legislation has been sent to a select committee of the National Assembly. Some clauses suggest that the Minister of Natural Resources should be empowered to appoint a board of directors for the Petroleum Commission, and that same board is to be a creature of the minister. When former House Speaker Mr. Ralph Ramkaran addressed a public lecture hosted by the Georgetown Chambers of Commerce and Industry on Wednesday, he spoke on some of the far-reaching implications of such a situation if absolute power over the Petroleum Commission is vested in the minister. He, however, reasoned that the government could have a broader plan.
I think it's also an effort by the state to maintain a strict control over the petroleum industry. Once again, I emphasize, I don't have a quarrel with that, but the hand is rather heavy, and there are other ways in which the state could maintain equal control without having to have the appearance of such of the obvious control.
Mr. Ramkaran said that other parts of the bill are acceptable. He said too that the Act speaks to the establishment of a broad commission with broad duties for the commissioners and more direct and structured duties for the minister who will be presiding over the commission. It should not have been so, he suggested.
The minister has power to give a great deal of directions. Generally, in bodies of this nature, in commissions of this nature, state commissions, the minister is, the legislation provides for the minister to give general directions, not detailed, not in this legislation. This one says that the minister may give directions of any policy to be observed and implemented. Any policy to be observed and implemented. So the minister has, once again, draw to your attention the tight control that he exercises over this commission.
These powers, Mr. Ramkaran observed, are not exercised at other commissions which the state operates.
Much of this could be because this act was copied from somewhere, you know. A lot of this legislation is just lifted from some other country, and sometimes wholesale, sometimes with modification. So we don't know where it came from. But it does point to the fact that it could well be that this is an industry that is new. Government knows very little about it. The country knows very little about it. And the government may feel that it is necessary for them to have this control.
He urged the government to continue to consult as wide as possible on this piece of legislation. and reasoned that one early mistake can cause harm for the country. Royd and James, HGP Nightly News.
You're watching the HGP Nightly News. Welcome back. As a committee of city councillors and other stakeholders prepare to meet with representatives of Smart City Solutions, Town Clerk Royston King is optimistic that the parking system partner will cooperate. Jeffon Vickery is on this story.
Town Clerk Royston King explained that it is not unusual for Smart City Solutions opting to conceal information for public consumption. He explained that with international contracts, there is usually non-disclosure agreements, and as such, there should not have been an issue between the partner and the previous committee. The Town Clerk said that even though the previous committee discontinued talks with Smart City Solutions because of the committee's non-acceptance of Smart City Solutions' request for a non-disclosure agreement, he's still optimistic that talks will go smoothly with the new committee.
But I don't, at the moment, foresee any problems with respect to the renegotiation of this particular contract. But it's not something that is unusual. All international contracts, and it's part of a standard. You will see that there are certain aspects where they've asked you to sign notes of confidentiality so that certain important aspects of the contract will not get out to the public for various reasons.
He, however, reiterated the importance of the project to City Hall, citing that with outstanding debts to contractors and workers, funds garnered by the project would have gone a far way to address these issues. But the question still remains: if Smart City Solution renews its request for a non-disclosure agreement, what will be the next move of the council? This newscast asks the chairman of that council, Councillor Akim Peter.
Well, the next move is that being a subcommittee of council, we would then have to take the issue up to full council for a vote, because then it would be not be in good faith. The negotiations will not start in good faith if we do request these documents and they're not given to us in a timely manner, because everything will be held in a time frame. And also for you to say we have to have a non-disclosure agreement, it's a public matter. And it's a matter for the citizens. During the council's statutory meeting last month, 13 councillors, including the Mayor of Georgetown, Patricia Chase Green, voted to keep the project, but under a renegotiated contract between City Hall and Smart City Solutions. Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Jevon. Guyana and Suriname are in the process of exploring possibilities of sharing a joint oil processing facility. This is the focus right now, but the modalities are yet to be worked out. Rawdon James spoke with Minister Trotman on the matter.
Natural Resources Minister Raphael Trotman recently returned from Suriname, where he represented Guyana at the annual New Producers Discussion Group meeting. Among the matters discussed by Minister Trotman and his Surinamese counterparts is the possibility of establishing an oil processing facility, an idea which the minister said could turn out to be a brilliant one.
Both countries, for their exploration and even production, when we have production in the near future, unless we do something, we'll have to rely on bases out of Trinidad and Tobago, which is, of course, good for Trinidad and Tobago, but not good for us, because local content and local industry or industrial development would suffer as a result. So perhaps it is something that both countries can see value in cooperating on.
At present, the government has no interest in setting up an oil refinery, but the administration is willing to support any private sector initiative in this regard.
The government is, yes, exploring, but we are looking to see the best optimum spot where we can land the gas on shore, because like Ghana, we are not flaring our gas. You want to bring it on shore, some will be re-injected. We have to look at what will we be powering up, what energy will be provided to the people, what support services could be given.
The minister is optimistic that whatever approach is taken must and will be in the best interest of and for the country.
And so we're looking at what is optimum in terms of Guyana, and of course, as I said, if there's a possibility of developing a joint base for the exploration and production only with Suriname. That is something that certainly will be explored.
Meanwhile, another massive oil exploration company has signaled its intention to explore Guyana's oil and to do business with Guyana. The minister said such an interest from companies like Chevron Corporation shows the level of potential that is on the horizon for the country. The company has made a very handsome proposal to work in Guyana, and the minister is expected to take that proposal to Cabinet for consideration. Roy and James, HGP Nightly News.
Your sportscast is ahead. Thanks for staying tuned. I'm Colin Abrams with the HGP Sportscast. We begin with tennis. Ghana to play host over the weekend for the Cup of the Guyanas tennis tournament. More in this report. The Guyana Tennis Association will be hosting this year's goodwill competition among Suriname, French Guiana, and Guyana. The competition originally started in Suriname during October 2012 as a collaboration between three countries as a developmental platform for tennis. The format is a team event of boys and girls competing in the under 18, under 14, and under 12 groupings. The Guyana team will be represented by boys under 18 Hemraj Rizal and Jordan Beaton, girls under 18 Afruka Gentle and Kelsia Fraser, boys under 14 Joshua Kalekyezi and Vairam Sharma, girls under 14 Sarah Klatti and Alana Chung, boys under 12 Jeremiah Kalekyezi and Vadinan Rizal, girls under 12 Akila Jones and Amber Prasad. Games begin on Friday up until Sunday at the GBTI Recreation Center and Happy Day Tennis Court. Single matches for Friday are in cricket, Ghana Jaguars with an impressive start as the Digital Regional 4-Day bowls off at Providence. Stanford Howard was there and filed this report.
With a delayed start by bad weather at Providence, the Guyana Jaguars lost 2 quick wickets in the morning session. The dismissal of 2 opening batsmen, Tanjanarang Chanjapal, 14, and Ranjarang Chandnarek, 25, left the Jaguars at 51 for 2 after 28 overs were bowled. Captain Leon Johnson was bowled by off-spinner Damian Sewell for 20 during that session. He made a small partnership with Chanjapal Hemraj, 60. Bashkar Yadram was bowled without troubling the scores, and the Jaguars were at that stage 101 for 4 off 42 overs. Anthony Bramble's knock of 62 stayed the Jaguars to 258 for 8 at the end of the first day. Off-spinner Damian Sewell took 3 for 69. Play continues tomorrow at the Providence National Stadium from 9:30 a.m. For HGP Sports, I'm Stanford Howard.
Thank you, Stanford. Guyanese Devendra Bishu, who impressed with the ball in his first test in Zimbabwe, is now the West Indies' highest-ranked test cricket bowler, moving 4 places ahead of fast bowler Shannon Gabriel, who has slipped from 21st to 25th. Bishun is now only 8 points shy of leapfrogging England's Moeen Ali to enter the top 20 for the first time in his career. Bishu won the ICC Emerging Cricketer of the Year award in 2011, returned figures of 5 for 79 and 4 for 105 to not only walk away with the Player of the Match award, but also collect 62 ranking points on the way, which helped him lift from 28th place to a career best of 21st place. West Indies players who also made a move upward in the test rankings are 18th ranked Craig Brathwaite, who remains the West Indies' highest-ranked batsman. Shai Hope, the biggest mover in ICC test batting rankings, he scored 90 not out and 44 in the first test and has been rewarded with a jump of 7 places that has put him in a career high of 24th place. Chris Gayle defamation lawsuit underway in an Australian court. You'll hear more in this report. Gayle is suing Fairfax Media over a series of articles published last year, claiming he had exposed himself to a woman working with the team. The woman, Leanne Russell, worked as a massage therapist for the West Indies in 2015. Speaking publicly for the first time, she told the court that she walked into the change room at the Oval and saw Gayle wearing a training t-shirt and a towel, and it was then that he exposed his genitals to her. The big-hitting batsman claims that the allegations are false and greatly injured his business, personal, and professional reputation by exposing him to odium, ridicule, and contempt. But Fairfax is standing by the articles, saying the allegations are true and were in the public's interest.
The defamation claims focus on 9 articles published in the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, and the Canberra Times in January last year. And that has brought us to the end of this edition of the HGP Sportscast. But before we go, here's a quick tip. Champions keep playing until they get it right. Back to you, Travis.
GEA searched for records of financial crimes. Investigators at Suku tightening their grip. Jack Dio backpedals on his adventurous non-cooperation pledge. GPSU unhappy over Education Minister's sweeper cleaners powwow. Meet with the union and workers, not just the workers, says the GPSU. And Cornelius Thomas, sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, begged to serve his sentence in his homeland, Trinidad and Tobago. Those were our major headlines. For these stories and more, please go to our website. It's www.hgptv.com. I'm Travis Chase. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.